All right, so my name is Katelyn Kriesel. I am a town councilor in the town of Manlius. I was elected in 2019 and re-elected in 2021. For my first term was a special election, so 2 years, 4 years next, and then I'm up next year. So if you live in the town of Manlius, vote double K on election day. I am also a financial advisor. It's my day job. My company is Green Lakes Planning, and I do socially responsible and ESG investing, which stands for environmental social governance. So I have an expertise in sustainability across the board, both in the private and public sectors. For a couple years, 2015 to 2017, I was the project coordinator for Solarize CNY. And I see a couple people who helped out with that campaign, so it's so nice to see those faces again. And that gave me inadvertently an expertise in renewable energy, which up until then I knew very little about. So we, as I mentioned, sworn in 2020. I immediately launched our sustainability committee, Sustainable Manlius. Up until then, the town of Manlius had done virtually nothing with sustainability, but through my background working for Solarize CNY, which was through the Central New York Regional Planning and Development Board, I knew of all the different programs that were available to us and all of the money that was on the table. So we quickly got to work launching our committee, which has been just resoundingly successful. So this is our press conference. We were the first climate smart community in Onondaga County. So we went from doing nothing to having this incredible achievement. So we had people come from Albany, from New York City to do a press conference, and I was so excited. I thought maybe it was time to retire at that point. So Basil, I never can remember, Basil, I always say Basil, it's Basil Sagos. He tweeted about us, which was really cool. Again, I was like, I'm done. I got like 7 retweets, 40 likes. That's success right there. And the plaque, I wanted to hang the plaque in my living room, but the town supervisor wouldn't let me. These are some pictures of our Earth Fest event. We started in 2021 with a virtual series of workshops, which were so successful. We had so many people tune in. And then we had this was our first in-person one the following year. So we had an electric vehicle car show. And that's a picture of me. I love including pictures of myself in my presentations. But I rode an electric bicycle, which was very cool. I almost crashed taking a selfie video of myself. It made for great social media content, though. We did quite a bit of public education on heat pumps through the Heat Smart CNY program. We called it Heat Up the Winter. So we had a lot of people turn out for that. And this was an opportunity to show people about how to electrify their home. And so this was our first effort to educate the community on those opportunities. And so we partnered with Lindsay Spear at Heat Smart CNY, and she was fantastic in helping us to get the word out about that. And to help educate people in our community on those opportunities. And it's my understanding you'll learn a little bit more about that later today. And then this is a full list of everything we've done in just a couple short years. So we did a greenhouse gas emissions inventory, a community greenhouse gas emissions inventory. We converted our streetlights to LED. We have electric vehicle charging stations now at Town Hall. Electric vehicles for town employee use. We are currently in the process of buying those. We participated with Heat Smart CNY, launched Sustainable Manlius. We hosted several Earth Fest events. We wrote our climate action plan, and we currently have over 40 megawatts of solar either constructed or under development, including our landfill solar project, which I'm going to talk more about. So the impact of all of those things, because that's what I want to highlight. Like, it's easy to say, it was harder to do all that work. But like, what was all that work for? What did we achieve? So the reduction of carbon emissions is critically important. Like, we are battling climate change all around the world, and we're all seeing the impacts of that in our communities. So doing our part in our community to reduce carbon emissions by switching to electrification is critically important. But the economic development piece is also super important, and that really helps people to feel motivated to act. It's not about being altruistic. There were and are a considerable amount of cost savings and revenue, not only to our municipality, but to our community. The economic development impact is happening. And when you move forward with electrifying your vehicles and your buildings, it creates healthier homes and healthier environment for all of us. We saw that during the pandemic when no one was driving anywhere. We saw pollution just disappear in communities all around the world. You could see further than you'd ever been able to see. So moving towards an electrified transportation sector and building sector, construction, has tremendous impact on our health. So these are our electric vehicle charging stations at Town Hall. So we were able to do this project with a grant that we received. And that's right next to the Erie Canal Park in the village of Fayetteville. So they're used quite frequently by people that are visiting the village of Fayetteville. And then this is our EV charging station project that we are in the process of completing at the Tops Plaza in the village of Manlius. So I went out and took a little video of the electrical panel going up and them digging a big hole. So this was also very exciting. So we're just waiting on the approval from the village and National Grid, and then that will be turned on. And the economic development impacts of an EV charging station are quite fascinating. I tried to get some numbers, but the numbers were a little bit all over the place, and in terms of the actual financial impact to a community. But what it showed was that in 2019, there was a considerable impact all across the country with electric vehicle charging stations helping to drive economic development in your community. So you have to site the EV charging station in a location that if people go there, they can go shopping or eat at a restaurant or go get coffee or whatever it might be. If you put it in the middle of nowhere, it won't get a lot of use because no one wants to just sit in their car and watch it charge. I have an electric vehicle, it gets pretty boring. So you want to have something to do, somewhere to go. So when you site an electric vehicle charging station in a location where there aren't any, you see a considerable economic impact to your community. The more you have, the less the impact, which makes sense because you're starting to saturate the area. But especially in rural communities where we don't see a lot of EV charging station infrastructure, it's an opportunity to actually drive economic development. People will go to your community to charge their car. I do it all the time. Like I find where my charger is and I charge there and then I pop around and see what's there. It really helps with tourism. So this is a picture of a electric vehicle. This is the Chevy Blazer 2025. It has a range of 279 miles. And then this is the Chevy Equinox. It's got a range of 319. In the town of Manlius, as I mentioned, we're currently in the process of buying 3 electric vehicles, 2 for our planning and development and 1 for our recreation department. They'll probably really end up sharing all 3 of them. And these vehicles were paid for with a grant that we were awarded from NYSERDA for $135,000. So we completed all of that, like that first slide where I said it's easy to say, it's not so easy to do. We've done a ton of work to be awarded this grant. So it was all point-based grant system through NYSERDA, through the Clean Energy Communities program. So Amanda, are you talking about that?
Mike will be.
Okay. So you're going to learn more about that this afternoon or later this morning, and I highly recommend it because it just paid for 3 electric vehicles for our town. And not only is that better for the environment and better for carbon emissions, it's also going to save $2,200 a year. Our planning and development, they drive all the time, and they're in a rusty old car. So now they're going to have something that's significantly more efficient, and we didn't have to pay for it. So we were awarded this money, it bought the cars, and now we're going to save money. And it's also a proof of concept to folks in the community when they see a municipality adopt these technologies. It helps to show them that it works. So this is one of my favorite pictures of all time. This is a picture of a community solar project on the town of Manlius's retired landfill. So when I was running for office in 2019, one of the things I was able to lean on from my expertise working at the planning board was how to develop a community solar project on a landfill, because Chris Carrick, my boss at the time, had been doing all of that work. And so I was able to learn from him and absorb that information. So I knew exactly how to do it. So when I was knocking on doors in 2019, I said, we're gonna do this. And we frickin' did it. Like, that's it. It's up, it's interconnected, it's producing electricity. And every time I drive by it, I'm like, I did that. It's really cool. So if you're driving by the Erie Canal, right outside of like town center, you'll see our project. If you go a little bit further towards DeWitt, you'll see theirs. Their project is a distributed generation project, so it goes just to the town of DeWitt. They've got a much higher electric bill than the town of Manlius with all of their commercial areas. Our Manlius is much more residential, so we don't really have to pay for nearly as much in terms of like streetlights, and we have far fewer buildings. So our project is a CDG array, which is community distributed generation. So the town of Manlius subscribes to our own project, which saves us 10% on our electric bill. And then we were able to fully subscribe our project with town of Manlius residents. And each person who signed up will save 10% on their electric bill. I told my sister to do it. She didn't sign up in time. We fully subscribed it in like 3 or 4 days. And it was awesome. So that's a lot of money being saved, not only by the town, but by our community residents. So in terms of the economic benefits that the town is receiving from this project, the lease payments will be $500,000 over 25 years, pilot payments, $450,000 over 25 years. Our subscription incentive to the town is $15,000. Subscriber savings in the town is $5,000 a year. And subscriber savings to town residents is $3.4 million over 25 years. And I put this into ChatGPT to make sure that someone did the math correctly. So it's over 25 years, $4.5 million that we will make or save in the town of Manlius for this project. I think that's a round of applause for that, right? So it's a revenue generator, and if you're not looking at this for your community to put a project on land that you own or land that you can lease, you're leaving money on the table. So in addition to, I'm trying to remember what this slide is. Okay, so the over 300,000, this includes all of the money that we've received from NYSERDA and from the different solar projects that have entered into agreements with us. They have community benefit agreements, and that money has brought over $300,000 to the town, a lot of it with no strings attached. It just has to be used for sustainability. So I have more money in my bank account, well, town of Manlius' bank account, than I know what to do with right now. And there's more on the table that we're pursuing. So we really are in a good spot, and we've done this in just a few short years. So the future for the town, we will be looking to implement our climate action plan. We are pursuing the construction of a new police station in a town building. That facility will be fully electric. It will meet every standard that we can possibly meet to make it a clean, healthy building. We have a housing complex that's being built right outside the village of Fayetteville, across from town center. It's going to be 300 apartments. That building is going to be fully electric, no gas whatsoever. The New York Stretch Energy Code, we're still looking and hoping that we're able to pursue that. And the Inflation Reduction Act, which you'll hear more about later this afternoon, it allows municipalities to take full advantage of tax credits in a way that we never could before. So if you were a not-for-profit or a non-tax-paying entity, you could not take advantage of the tax credits that were available at the federal level, and now they'll give you dollar for dollar the full value of that tax credit. So even the way I just developed that community solar project, which was very elaborate, we don't even have to do that anymore, because now we can just take advantage of the tax credits ourselves. So it's really worth looking into, and I'm glad that's a topic for today, because it's so important that we learn about that. So final plug, this is a picture of actually the house I grew up in, and then I owned it for a few years. My parents just bought it back from me. It's a very long story. But that's solar on the roof that I got my dad to put on when I was running the Solar CNY campaign. And you can see my Mustang charging in the garage. So I didn't ever have to worry about paying to charge my car or paying for electricity. And my dad's also a financial advisor, so I remember calling him and saying, do you want to know what you should do? And he said, don't say I should go solar. I'm like, you should go solar. And then I said, do you want to know what it's like? He said, don't say it's like a fixed annuity. And I said, oh, it's like a fixed annuity. So you start saving money on day one. So look into solar for your house as well, and electric vehicles. That's it for me, everyone. Thank you so much.